Hey there, Jeff Manchester, Manchester Music. Welcome. The title, I know, it's a bit cheeky, but it is one of the most popular things that I get in my inbox, which is Vodkastpodcaster at gmail.com. How to sound like me. How do I sound like me? How do you sound like me? I made one video on this. It was a little long, a little elaborate. I want to cut right to the chase and talk about what I do on the capture side and the post-production side. In fact, there's a good example of something I don't do, and that's record when a plane is going over. So I'm going to stop. Okay, this dovetails really nicely into tip number 1. Quiet times. Record during them. What does this mean? If you have roommates, record when they're at work. If you have kids, record when they're at school. If you live in an apartment building, record when people aren't going in and out of the hallways, coming from work, coming back from work, leaving to work, coming back from work. Record during super quiet times. It's going to help in post-production. It's also going to help you relax and be less anxious on camera, knowing that there won't be an errant noise or something that's going to pop up and get you off your game. So that's what I do. I record very quiet times. I'm lucky enough to be a homeowner, but still there's noises. There's times of day where I get less noise versus more noise. So I skew obviously to less noise. Record in quiet times. Number 2. Treat your room. I've made videos on this before. You don't have to break the bank. You could make stuff, from Fabricland plus Home Depot. You could order stuff, or you could just put a couch and some kind of moving blankets and hoodies and sweatshirts around to absorb the noise. It's going to cut down on the amount of reflections and all that stuff and just make it sound much more professional. So that's really key to me, is a quiet space and a treated room. Crucial. Now, number 3, SM7B. That's what I'm recording into right now. You don't have to have this, but it's what I use. I use it with the second windshield that it comes with. It comes with one which is much thinner. I do not recommend this at all. It's more for instruments that you would use it. This is designed for the human voice. It's thicker, so it mitigates and diffuses bursts of air like plosives that lead into the microphone. I still get rid of them in post. We'll get to that, but I use the larger of the two that comes with this microphone. I also employ a presence boost on the back, which just brightens things up. It's a very rich, kind of dark sounding microphone. The other thing is I talk pretty close to it. Another thing about it being dynamic, it's able to handle the kind of proximity, and that proximity warmth effect that you get when you're close to these mics is something people kind of like to hear. I also use a broadcast arm, so this thing is not mounted to a mic stand. It's kind of hooked into my desk and bent in such a way where, if I tap my desk or whatever, those vibrations don't make it into the microphone. We don't get noise handling sounds or mic handling sounds. It's very smooth and quiet. So quiet times, treated room, SM7B, broadcast arm, all that stuff goes a really long way. But I go an extra step further before I put my stuff onto YouTube, and I will do some post-processing. I will use stuff to get rid of plosives, stuff to get rid of the room tone, the noise floor. Even though this is quiet and it's treated, in every situation you will have a noise floor. That's just kind of like the ambient noise in the room from electricity, from the stuff that's in the room machine-wise. There's just always a kind of sound. If you watch Marvel movies, for example, in a big theater, they're recording with green screens in very controlled spaces, but every now and then, because the dynamic range is so great in theaters, listen for when they speak and there's no music, you will hear a noise room kind of creep in their VO, and you'll just hear that kind of room just kind of come in. That's because it's impossible really to take it away completely. It's always kind of around. But doing all those things and using a little bit of post gets the room out of the microphone, and that's why I use some denoising. I use some De-plosive stuff. I also use mouth declick. I have a very kind of clicky mouth, and that's just part of talking for a long time and doing kind of long takes. You get dry and you develop the clicks and pops. And I also use at the very end a bit of an EQ just to add a kind of polish and sheen, some top end. I find that the SM7B is great, but it does sound a little kind of closed and dark. So I might brighten it up a little bit in post. I'm not using any unison preamp kind of funny technology plugins or anything like that on the way in. This is clean, goes into my Apollo, and that's the kind of gist of it. I'm going to show you now the post-processing that I do on the voice before it goes to the channel. So the first thing I do is I will find some audio that will work as a fingerprint for noise reduction. And usually I'll make sure when I'm recording to leave a space for the room tone so that I can capture that kind of fingerprint. And I think I've got a good patch probably over here. I'll just zoom in. By the way, we're in RX 8 Advanced. It's what I use. And I'll just call that out. Hit the shift button, get a couple different patches where there's no breathing or anything like that. And then I'll go over here to spectral denoise. I prefer this tool. I'll press learn because I've captured some audio, leave it on best quality wise, 7. Musical noise and gating. These settings, reduction and threshold, are probably carried over from another session where I was doing my voiceover. So I'm pretty confident that those guys will be good. And typically what I'll do now is just go in and preview the processing and also bypass before and after to hear if it's taken away what I want to take away. Hey there, Jeff Manchester, Manchester Music. The title of this video might be a little kind of funky. Sorry about that. It's just cool. So I'm happy with that. I'll press render. It's going to go through the entire audio event and get rid of all the noise rather elegantly and mostly artifact free. If there are artifacts, they're pretty imperceptible. So we'll let it get to the end of its time. Awesome. And we can see the kind of noise floor of the room getting pulled away in the spectrogram because brightness corresponds to loudness. So we have this kind of cloud running in the background of all the audio harmonics here, my voice and stuff. But when I go to after processing, it's taking it away. So that gives me confidence that it has done something. The next thing I do is I'll usually treat plosives. I mentioned the shield as being the pop shield or the windscreen, the one that it comes with, the thicker one being really good for getting rid of the plosives, but some still poke through, and that's why we're in post to get rid of them. And here's what I think might be a good candidate, this little spike here on the bottom. This is one of the most popular questions. So as plosives go, that's not too bad, but I'll show you what I do. I go over here, I go to De-plosive, leave the frequency limit at 100, strength 3.3, sensitivity 5, hit render, here's after. Sorry about that. It's just, this is one of the most popular questions. This is one of the most popular questions. So a slight reduction. This is one of the most popular. And that's good enough for me. And now what I'll do is press render and it's going to go through the entire audio event, just like we did with spectral denoise, and remove all the plosives. If I go a little bit too far in the right direction here with the frequency limit, it might end up compromising some of the kind of rich low end vibe that my voice plus the SM7B kind of bring to the table. So I want to be mindful of that. So that's why I leave it here at about 100. But one thing I'll do is if I still see some remaining kind of thumps and thuds portrayed by these kind of, spikes, these bright bursts here, I'll go through and just manually get rid of them. But I'm not seeing them. I'm pretty happy that it's going to take them away. The next thing I do is I'll go to mouth declick. I have a very clicky mouth. I'll do a lot of takes, and so I get dehydrated, and clicks and pops and smacks tend to poke through. So these are my settings. Frequency skew. It's going to skew the repair processing toward the high frequencies. Sensitivity 5.6. Click widening. We'll leave that at 0. And now it'll go through and render all the clicks out, and we'll probably end up with about 5,500 or so. That's usually for a 10-minute sequence how long it is. Okay, it's actually more. 63:35. Gotcha. Cool. And here's another thing I'll do. I'll do one more pass just because some clicks are obscured behind others. And when you do a first pass, the ones that were hidden in and around larger ones will still remain because they weren't picked up by the first pass. So that's what I'm doing there. Okay, and then the last thing I'll do is I will go and use the EQ, which is very utilitarian here. It's in the utility category. And the preset that I really like is General Enhance. I'll bring this over because I actually don't want to cut any rich low end. But there's something about this, I'll bring this over to about 2K, that just brings the voiceover a little bit more into the forefront, like the singer or the speaker, or me in this case, is stepping forward in the room. Bit of a boost of brightness at around 6K, 7K. And I just find that this kind of adds a bit of brightness because the SM7B is a bit darker and richer sounding, so I can preview that too. Again, there's two. That's more for instruments as far as I'm concerned. This larger one is for the human voice, so go for that one. I also employ a presence boost on the back of this microphone. I just like the way it sounds. I'm not employing the high pass though. I keep it kind of, full frequency from what, and that's it. That's all I do. So now at this point, I will go in and go to the export menu here and select my settings for bit depth and, the kind of file format, click OK, and bring this into Premiere. And that's kind of the end of my job. All right. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. As always, like, subscribe, share with your friends. If you want more videos about this, let me know. I read every comment. And if you have questions, vodkastpodcaster@gmail.com. Bye-bye.